Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential Podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I am Andrew Kahn.
I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
Michigan bounced back on Saturday in a big way, blowing out Central Michigan by 60 points. Bryce Underwood was fantastic, and he had plenty of help on both sides of the ball. We break down Michigan's win coming up on Wolverine Confidential. All right, guys, good to be with you here. Late night on Sunday, September 14th, as what is the Vikings-Falcons game at halftime now? I turned it off to come pod, but
JJ just threw a dart at the end of the half for to get Minnesota into field goal range.
It is a rematch of the starting quarterbacks from the national championship we covered a couple years ago. Of course, Washington's Michael Penix Jr. now with the Atlanta Falcons, and Michigan's J.J. McCarthy with the Minnesota Vikings. Quick take on J.J. from what we've seen so far from him in the NFL. At Michigan, I always felt like he maybe got a little bored because he was so good and Michigan didn't throw the ball 30 times a game that he tried to do things he didn't need to do. And I think he'll have to just learn in the NFL that it's not boring to take the check down or the 8-yard completion or whatever it is. The big plays, when you can make them, they're there, but you don't need to make the game harder than it is, because at that level it's good enough. I always did feel like that he was doing that at Michigan a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and it seems like he's pressing a little bit too. Like he wants to shine right away and be a star type of thing. And he's forced a couple throws. It maybe hasn't looked exactly comfortable on all his dropbacks. But yeah, again, it's still a young guy who missed all of his rookie season. So I'm sure he'll turn it around. But the fourth quarter in his opener was pretty remarkable, though, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. You saw what he can do, and I think he's going to be a star. But yes, the fit in before you stand out, as John Beeline used to say. But all right, let's get to the main event here, which is Michigan's dominating victory over Central Michigan on Saturday, 63-3. We asked for scores. I don't know if you guys got any on social media. I got an email from Jim Reynolds. He said Michigan 38, Central Michigan 7. So he underestimated the blowout. We all did. Aaron McMahon said it was going to be a shutout, and man, it almost was. Central Michigan took the points when they could get them on their one, good drive of the game to get a field goal shortly before half. But Michigan was just so dominant right from the start. I mean, first possession, play action on the first snap, a very deep shot down the field. It was nearly intercepted, but at least they were taking a shot. You saw a screen pass on that drive. You saw Bryce Underwood run a scramble for 16 yards on third down. He was great. The defense was great, and this game was over early.
Yeah, I think I overestimated the Central Michigan defense just a little bit. I figured they'd get something going against Michigan, and they couldn't do it. We'll get into it probably in a minute, but Michigan's offense, looked a little different on Saturday, and there was a big reason for it. Where I came out of the game Saturday night, just thinking about what this team could have looked like a week ago in Oklahoma had they unveiled Bryce Underwood and his legs a week earlier. Maybe how that game maybe would have changed a little bit, but nonetheless, Michigan looked vastly different offensively Saturday with Bryce Underwood's legs, and it wasn't close at all. I mean, and it was apparent from the get go. I mean, Michigan moved up and down the field with ease. CMU couldn't do anything. I think I said to you guys in the press box at one point, I think it was the second or third drive. I didn't know if they would even get 150 rushing yards, because this team, and we knew this coming in, this team was one-dimensional. They love running the football. That's how they kind of work and operate. So when you're overmatched and one-dimensional against the CMU team, against a Michigan team that was frustrated from the way they performed against Oklahoma a week earlier, it was a recipe for a blowout, and that's certainly what we got.
Well, you didn't know if they'd get 150 total yards. You were very confident. We all knew they wouldn't get 150 rushing yards as total yards, and they, that was at the end of the day, they did not get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people expected Michigan's defense to have a really good showing, but to put up 63 points and over 600 yards and move the ball as seamlessly as they did, I think that's even didn't matter what opponent it was to see that come to fruition after what we saw at Oklahoma was a big step forward heading into Big Ten play. And it's like, yeah, maybe you don't want to showcase too much with Bryce Underwood using his legs, but now it is on film, and now Nebraska has to maybe change their game plan. And at least now they're aware, like, oh wow, maybe we should be paying more attention, and he could beat us and scare us a little bit more than we originally thought too.
Absolutely. Let's dive in right into that, because that's the biggest thing from this game. Bryce Underwood was not perfect. I mean, he overthrew Marlon Klein on a potential touchdown. He had the really bad interception where he just threw it off his back foot into double coverage. But he dropped the dime to Samaj Morgan for a long touchdown, and he had some nice runs. Including the long 20-yard touchdown run. So that's what we asked for. And after the game, I mean, did you guys get the sense that Biff Poggi sort of admitted that they'd made a mistake at Oklahoma? Because his quote is, "We thought at Oklahoma we would take the air out of the ball," which I think our listeners probably know what that means, but just try to shorten the game by playing very conservatively and running the ball a lot with in this case with their running backs. Anyway, we thought we'd take the air out of the ball because they were an air raid offense. They being Oklahoma, throwing the ball a ton. We're not taking the air out of the ball ever again. Not with this guy taking snaps. I took that as an admission that, yeah, they kind of screwed up. They maybe didn't realize what they had.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it, and it's probably how most folks are gonna choose to look at it, and we it's weird, it's funny because we spoke to Shlomo earlier in the week, and, he's at that point, at least to us in the media, there was still reluctance there to run the football with Bryce Underwood, and he said it before, and he said it last Monday, like, there was a concern about him getting injured and Michigan not potentially having a adequate enough backup quarterback to make things go, and at some point, it seems like between that time, that Monday morning press conference, and the time they got to Saturday for the game, things changed. I don't know if there was they had to do some convincing. If Chip Balinci just had a 180, if Sharon had a 180. I will say this: I do think the offensive line and the banged up nature of it probably played a factor into this. If you go back last week against Oklahoma, and even this week, if you look at some of the advanced stats and metrics and grading and all this, everything else, this Michigan offensive line's held up relatively well in pass protection so far through 3 games. In fact, they've been pretty good. Where they've really struggled is getting push in the run game. So I think Michigan, if you're the Michigan coaches looking at it, you're saying, well, if our offensive line isn't getting much push in the run game, let's do what they do well. It's in the passing game. So it gives Bryce Underwood another opportunity to drop back, and if he doesn't see things, if things aren't open, he can take off and run. And that's certainly we saw a lot of that Saturday.
I will say this about Biff Poggi. He was a lot more illuminating than I thought he was than Sharon Moore, and just revealing about this, yeah, just open about more things than we're used to with Sharon Moore. And I do think it was an admission, like Andrew said, like they did make a mistake against Oklahoma, and I'm excited to see now what this offense looks like moving forward. That they've kind of like taken the training wheels off their 5-star freshman quarterback, and yeah, it's just with whether it was talking about Bryce or the behind the scenes with practice this leading into this week's game, and or just describing Jay Sean Barham. Biff Poggi was a pretty entertaining interview.
Sounds like you're happy to be talking to him again on Monday. You're not rushing Sharon Moore back from his suspension.
I guess not. No, no. I'm sure fans want more of Biff Poggi too after what they saw on Saturday.
We could talk more about what he said, because the comments about this being a love letter, I've got some thoughts on that. But as far as the game itself, yeah, offensively, right? This is what we should expect from Michigan going forward. I mean, I guess the question is, does it translate to Big Ten football? That's the question, right?
That's 100% the question, right? It's one thing to do against Central Michigan, an undermanned team with a new coach and still trying to figure out their identity and their system, and it's different to go on the road and do it against a high caliber, Big Ten team, and that's certainly what they're going to have Saturday at Nebraska. But the one thing that really caught my eye Saturday, especially early on, is they were clearly using the pass to help set up the run and set up Bryce Underwood. The first 4 plays of the game were all pass plays. Six of the, I think the 10 plays on the first drive were pass plays. So they were clearly coming out, looking to make a statement and be getting the scoreboard early. And certainly they're able to do that. You got the sense right after Michigan marched down the field after that first drive and scored a touchdown that the game was over. And then after that, it kind of opened things up for Bryce in the run game in some respects. Justice Haynes, another game over 100 yards. You saw a better performance from Jordan Marshall. I still think there's more room for there, but they used the pass to set up the run. Whereas previous years, this Michigan team was the opposite, right? They were trying to smash, they were trying to be physical at the line of scrimmage to eventually set up some pass plays. So it's certainly a different looking offense than what we've become accustomed to seeing the last couple of years.
We can hit on the defense and special teams too, because you don't win by 60 points typically without that side of the ball being dominant. Also, and Michigan's was in this case, I mean, setting the tone early. I mean, just as the offense came down the field and scored right away. When Central Michigan then got the ball for the first time, sack by Jason Barham right away, and he was just living in the backfield all game. It was such a complete performance. There were very few, if any, like true busts either. I mean, maybe there were a couple that Central Michigan just didn't take advantage of. They gave Michigan a little trouble with the quarterback run game, but I mean that's to be expected. Central, we talked about their three-headed attack at quarterback. It was only two with one guy ruled out late in the week, and he's more of the runner, but still, I don't think he was worth 60 points or or really would have made a difference in this game at all. Michigan's defense was just lights out, start to finish.
This was a game, and I think I said to you guys at one point, this is a game that I think Wink Martindale was just licking his chops because once you got ahead of CMU, you knew you would have to force him at least trying to throw the ball, and that's where the pressure comes in. And Jason Barrow, man, he was all over the field early. I mean, we've seen him in the past, but gosh, it's almost seemed like he was at a different level on Saturday. And obviously, there was probably some frustration still boiling over from the a few weeks prior and the ejection and whatnot. But he got after the quarterback. He made some plays. He was very impressive. Sounds like he's gonna be okay. That was another quip from Biff Poggi after the game. Defense is all over the place. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, CMU, as I said, CMU is one dimensional. They wander on the football, and you take that out of their hand and force them to throw the ball. There just wasn't a ton of action there. They had that one long drive I thought was pretty good, as you pointed out. Angel Flores had one of their quarterbacks had some scrambles and kind of kept Michigan's defense off balance. But beside that, they couldn't do much of anything all game.
With how Barham played on Saturday, kind of begs the question: like, do you keep him as an edge rusher full time? Because it's for TJ Guy didn't play on Saturday, and we don't really know why at this point. And yeah, they played Barham specific or solely at edge, and yeah, like you guys said, like he dominated, and he's got all the tools. And you have Jimmy Rolder that it looks, and Cole Sullivan too, that it looks like Michigan really likes at the inside linebacker spots, along with Ernest Hausman. So you have depth there. So if you can get to the quarterback with Barham in there at edge, maybe that's something that sticks a little bit more.
Yeah, it was something that was easy to kind of not notice on Saturday was just one particular player, even a starter, not being out there because of just how well the unit performed. But we'll try to get some more information. We don't want to speculate right now about guys' absence. I mean, he didn't play particularly well in the Oklahoma game, I didn't think, but also not just being benched for performance. I get them. I'm safe. I think I'm safe saying that. So many, just overall, the statistic that jumps out. I mean, Michigan had 9 touchdowns in this game, and Central Michigan had 8 first downs. So, I mean, that kind of tells you all you need to know. But there's so many firsts. Andrew Marsh, first catch and first touchdown, the freshman wide receiver. Jaden Davis playing for the first time this year. As well as Jake Garcia taking snaps at quarterback. Bryson Cusdall, first career touchdown, the junior running back. Manuel Beigel, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, the fumble recovery, sophomore defensive lineman. There were offensive linemen all over the place whose names were not maybe household names. Freshman running back Jasper Parker, who carried all 9 times on a 45-yard drive in the fourth quarter and scored his first career touchdown. So a lot of shout outs to guys that don't normally get a lot of shine as Michigan emptied the bench.
Yeah, they got a lot of guys in there. Name you didn't mention, Elijah Dotson, first interception, former teammate of Bryce Underwood at Bevel High School. And look, that's what happens, right? When you get up big and you're able to empty the bench and get a lot of guys action, and they got a lot of guys into the game, which it was very reminiscent of those that national title run from 2021 to 2023 with Jim Harbaugh, and how those early games, those early regular non-conference games where they get big leads and they literally try and play every game or every player. And I know there were games in there where they did get everyone into the game. I don't know if that was the case on Saturday, but they got darn near almost everyone. And to the point where afterwards, I know Jordan Marshall was talking about some of the younger running backs getting into games that normally wouldn't, like a Thomas O'Meara, and how fortunate they felt, being able to see action. But that's a cause of a lopsided game, right? You don't want anyone to get seriously hurt. You get your starters and your second team guys out of there. Michigan needed a bounce back performance after the loss last week against Oklahoma, and I don't know if you could have scripted anything more dominant than what they did on Saturday. So, it's a nice feeling, I think, for all the team, that the coaches, especially with Sherm, were not there on the sideline. But if you're a fan, you're hoping that can carry over, into Big Ten play this weekend.
Yeah, there were some offensive linemen I was looking for that I don't think got in, but yes, it was a lot of guys that saw the field. I don't have the exact number, but yeah, I'll try to get that in a story here coming up. But yeah, just a dominant overall performance. Anything that concerned you? I'll start. I mean, Dominic Zavada did miss a 47-yard field goal, so it seems like he's he's regressing a little bit, I guess, from last season when he was just so awesome. But you typically cannot count on a college kicker to regularly make field goals, close to or more than 50 yards. It's just that, again, once you've gotten a taste of that, it became the expectation that Zavada just wouldn't miss, which was unfair, but it does make what he's doing this year a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really matter Saturday, but yeah, like going on the road now this week against Nebraska, the 3 points could be the difference. And he was such a weapon. Without him last year, who knows what Michigan's record would have been? Uh, it could have been worse than 8-5. So he was arguably their MVP last season. So um, I don't want to read too much into it yet, because it still is only 2 games, but if maybe the coaching staff goes for it on a 4th and 2 instead of kicking a 50-yarder now, or something like that too. And if that doesn't work out, then you could second guess the coaching staff. So it'll be interesting to see the next time Michigan's in this situation, what happens.
And you do wonder if that gave Sherm more pause, a few weeks back when he was getting a lot of flack for not, kicking field goals, with Zavada, or, not attempting that 55-yarder. I think it was in the opener. We don't know what's going on. We haven't spoken to Zavada here in a while now. But yeah, it is odd, and you start to wonder, and I think I said to you guys in the press box during the game, but you almost feel bad for Zavada, because his stock was so high coming out of last year. He easily could have went to the NFL, and I don't know if he would have necessarily been drafted, but he certainly there would have been a lot of interest from NFL teams, and he certainly would have stuck somewhere. So, his intention was to come back and kind of duplicate what he did last year, and show that the college football world that he was the best kicker in the game. And while he's been fine so far, he hasn't been lights out, and that's I don't know. Maybe we're reading too much into it. Maybe it's been just a bad couple of weeks for him. We know how kickers, it's largely a mental thing, right? It's repetition, and you get off, you struggle at some point, and it all, in a way, kind of spirals from there. So if you're Michigan, you hope it's not a big deal. It's just a 1 or 2 week thing. But yeah, we'll see where things go with Zavada.
Life is beautiful and fragile. We fall. We get tired. And sometimes we get sick. But with Corewell Health, we are also strong. We fight disease. We battle cancer. We come together. We come back. We push forward. When the body breaks, we break through. Corewell Health. We can.
And the other thing I wanted to mention about Biff Poggi, I mean, he said it in interviews he did, during and immediately after the game on Big Ten Network, and then he said it again with us in the press conference. Basically, that he felt this game was a love letter from the 120 guys or whatever it is on the team to Sharon Moore for being absent. I thought he was maybe going to shed a tear at one point in the press conference as he talked about his kind of emotional conversations with Sharon leading up to this game and how sad he was he couldn't be there. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little cynical in my old age here, but he's not laid up in the hospital, he's suspended, and it's a school imposed suspension. So like, I guess is it I guess I'm gonna ask Biff tomorrow, like, is it, do you believe that this suspension is unfair? Is it as simple as that you do not feel that he should be suspended? Which, reasonable minds can disagree on that. I mean, I think we can I'll say that it, Sharon Moore became somewhat of a scapegoat. He was the head coach at the time that the NCAA finally got its act together and punished Michigan. Now, obviously, they punished his predecessor too, Jim Harbaugh, and in writing, they said that the reason for Sharon Moore being suspended was, deletion of some text messages. So it's not like he was completely innocent, and they dinged him because he was the head coach. But again, I just have a hard time feeling too sorry for the guy because he is suspended. I'm sure he wants to be there, but I mean, again, this is a little different than maybe like Jawan recovering from heart surgery and Phil Martelli stepping in.
I will say this: if there's one thing Michigan's done a very good job over the last couple of years, it's using suspensions like these as motivation, as kind of like rallying cries. I remember when Jim had the two suspensions back in 2023. I remember the players going into the stadium with the free Harbaugh T-shirts, and in Sharon Moore's emotional post game interview after Penn State, like they clearly, I think, ratchet this stuff up behind the scenes. Now, whether they truly believe it's worthwhile or not, I don't know. But you could tell there's an emotional attachment with Biff and Sharon. Look, Sharon brought Biff back. I mean, he was fired last year at Charlotte. Didn't have very good didn't have two very good years there as head coach. But clearly, there was a feeling like Biff had. He had won over the locker room. He'd been here in previous stints under Jim Harbaugh. He was very good at developing a relationship with players, so they brought him back. Maybe this was part of Sharon's reasoning why. I mean, he knew the suspension was looming. He needed someone to take over. And as we found out last week, it was very much a move to kind of keep things in check, right? The boat continue the boat moving without a ton of movement elsewhere with the staff. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of it as well, just like you. But behind the scenes, they need any rallying cry they can get, and at least for 1 week it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to fault the team for finding motivation in certain ways. Like they're free to do that. But yeah, like pulling on those strings in the media and trying to making it a sob story and getting people to try and feel bad for them almost. It's like, I mean, I don't know how much people are going to buy into that, but yeah, they played like a pissed off group on Saturday and played really well. So I mean, whatever was said and done during the week, it seemed to work. Now we'll see if that carries it over into Big Ten play this week. But gotta like how things have gone so far without Sharon Moore there.
Yeah, and don't forget too. I mean, players have said kind of just the opposite. I mean, it was Max Bredesen just a few weeks ago who was asked about Sharon's departure, and he basically said, we don't play with Sharon. He's not on the field, so him not being there isn't necessarily a big deal. And then we had, Zach Marshall, a tight end the other day, point out to a reporter myself that I could coach the team and it wouldn't be a big deal. So I don't know. You can choose to take motivation however you want. Biff clearly, is an attachment there. He even, he was complimentary of Sharon during the press conference, called him a rising star, and that's not the first person we've heard say that in the past. So, either way, I mean, look, Michigan got to win without Sharon there. It was used as motivation. Can they do it again? Saturday in Lincoln is the question here.
It is, and that's a perfect transition here now to that game, 3:30 in Lincoln. Next Saturday, Nebraska improved to 3-0 on Saturday with a 59-7 win over Houston Christian, which is an FCS program that has never had a winning season. The week before was a similar blowout win, 68-0 over Akron. So really what you're going to be watching tape is the season opener against Cincinnati, which was a 20-17 win on a neutral field. Uh, Dylan Raiola, he was Bryce Underwood of last year, and maybe not the number one overall recruit in the country, but he was way up there, 5-star kid, dual threat, and he's been really, really good this year. He's now completed 77% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. So yeah, just really, really efficient. He's dynamic. And, I think Nebraska is pretty well coached. Matt Rule seems to know what he's doing. He's got the program moving in the right direction after some dismal years under Scott Frost. But yeah, this is the first Big Ten game. It's a measuring stick game for both teams.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. It's the second litmus test right on the schedule. Before the season, we had a handful of toss-up games, and as we said, just I remember a few weeks back with Oklahoma. This is another example, right? Can Michigan go on the road and win a game? That it's essentially a 50-50 toss-up, and if they can do so, you're gonna have folks, I think, feeling warm and fuzzy again that this team could potentially make the playoff and compete for a Big Ten title. If they don't, it's back to the drawing board, right? You're 2-2, and you're wondering how much better this team is compared to last year. So look, Nebraska's not an easy place to play. It's a fun environment. It's loud. It's like a NFL. I always compare it to like an NFL caliber stadium. It's big. It's loud. The fans show up. And Michigan's had some historic moments in the past there. So this game can certainly be a big feather in their cap for their season. And look, I will say this: I feel more comfortable about Michigan's chances after Saturday's win than I did before. Knowing that they have unleashed Bryce Underwood in some respects in the ground, I think that does open up some things for them, especially with the ground game. I think they're going to be a little more diverse. I think offensively, and I think it's reflected in the point spread coming in. I checked it tonight. I think some books have Michigan favored by 1.5. Some others have them by 2.5. So clearly, a neutral site, Michigan's almost a touchdown favorite here. So clearly, the Bryce Underwood effect is there, and we'll see if Michigan can duplicate or certainly follow up what they did Saturday against the Chippewas.
I think another key storyline to monitor this week too is just like how healthy will Michigan be going in that game too. They did hold out 2 starting offensive linemen. Zeke Berry didn't play. TJ Guy didn't play. Rod Moore didn't play. So they still they won handedly, but they also kept some guys out. Maybe that's out of precaution. Maybe they weren't able to go. But yeah, Michigan would definitely benefit from being at full strength, because as well as the defense played, that was a really young secondary playing out there on Saturday. Yeah, like Jaden Sanders, a starting cornerback. I mean, I think Michigan communications person said like Will Johnson wasn't even starting that early in his career. So it's, yeah, I mean, pretty, yeah, it just shows that the isn't much depth in the secondary, and it's good that they're out there and getting that experience against teams like Central Michigan. But you would like a Rod Moore and a Zeke Berry and those experienced guys out there in a tough environment like Nebraska. So we'll see this week.
That's my biggest question mark going into this game is the offensive line. Can they hold up? Will Giovanni Elhadi be available for starters? What's it going to look like? Is Brady Norton going to be there? Because it's one thing to do against CMU, and look, CMU had some bigger guys in the defensive line, but it's going to be a clear upgrade in talent going against Nebraska. So they're going to need the running game, whether it's Bryce, whether it's Justice Haynes, or it's Jordan Marshall. They're going to need to pick up yards on the ground. So the offensive line, I think, is going to be key to victory on Saturday. Can they hold up in run blocking? Because they've shown they can do in pass protection, but run blocking has been a different story. And in some ways, they still struggled Saturday against CMU. So that's going to be the position to watch. And interestingly enough, that was another nugget we learned in the post-game press conference with Biff Poggi is before Sharon went on a suspension, he spent a good chunk of time in practice last week with the offensive line. Trying to get that group into shape, because clearly there's concern there, and I don't think it helped matters either with losing Brady Norton this week in practice. So we'll see where things go with the guys up front.
I thought Jake Winera filled in pretty well though in his place too. It's like it is Central Michigan, but it's almost like, do you just roll with him against Nebraska too and give him a shot? Because I don't think Brady Norton played all that well when he was in the games the first 2 weeks either. So different levels of competition. But I mean, yeah, I was pretty impressed with Granera on Saturday.
Yeah, well, certainly questions to ask about the health of the team and what they're thinking personnel wise that we'll have covered on mlive.com/Wolverines. Before we wrap up, let's just hit on some news across college football, if you guys don't mind. UCLA coach Deshaun Foster is out 3 games into the season. And it's his second season on the job. I saw Virginia Tech moved on from their coach too, but this is his third or fourth year. Yes, to move on from Foster so quickly was surprising to me, though obviously the results have been poor.
Yeah, 15 games in. I mean, he was 5-10 overall. He went 5-7 last year. They're 0-3, off to an 0-3 start this year. So, quick trigger out there at UCLA, especially for a guy who's a star player there. I mean, this isn't like some random dude. I mean, this is a guy that
Right,
it was a
right.
program quote unquote legend, right? That they brought back to try and reignite things once Chip Kelly left, and clearly things haven't worked. UCLA, I think. Finished the season strong last year, so I think the assumption was they're able to get that momentum going this year. Hasn't worked. I mean, they brought in Nico MLive, the quarterback from Tennessee, apparently paid him some big money. Hasn't worked out. So, I think you're going to start seeing more of these quick triggers in college football, given the nature of the win now attitude, right? With NIL and the ability to flip rosters quickly with the transfer portal. There's really no excuse. At least that's how I think ADs are viewing it now. So, I guess I can't say I'm surprised. If you go back and watch his introductory press conference at Big Ten Media Days last year, it was brutal, and you got the idea that he was going to be a coach learning on the job, so to speak. And I can't speak from someone behind the scenes here because I'm not, but things clearly haven't worked there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised. It seemed like he was losing the locker room even before the season started. Got into a little bit of a disagreement with the media and just the whole operation there. And then, yeah, losing 3 straight games and losing at home against New Mexico when you're a 15.5 point favorite. That's tough to sell to the team and to I'm sure boosters and donors too. It's like it's hard to instill optimism moving forward when that type of stuff's going on.
That's the issue with UCLA football too. There just isn't a lot of momentum behind there. But you mentioned boosters and donors. There isn't a lot there. It's more on the basketball side. I mean, it's a tough place to play. It's a tough place to go in there and be successful. I think and that's one of the reasons why you saw Chip Kelly depart so quickly. He realized what he was up against, and it wasn't good. And now you have UCLA joining a top heavy Big Ten where it's even more difficult to compete. Whoever takes that job, good luck to them.
Yeah, I think NIL has made universities move on more quickly from their coaches, and also for 2 reasons. I mean, the expectation that, hey, we gave you the resources, you had the chance to turn this around quicker by flipping the roster, and also we need to get a guy in place quicker because to take advantage of that portal window, we can't wait till the end of the season because then it could be too late. So it is interesting. But yeah, that we said after that New Mexico game against Michigan, they might be a little better than people thought. And again, UCLA, obviously that's the bigger story is their struggles, but again, New Mexico might be okay. That might Michigan's strength of schedule could benefit from, of course, New Mexico's success down the line. And then I don't know if there's any other Big Ten teams. Now we're getting to the Big Ten opener. Maybe we'll save that for Thursday. A little trip around the Big Ten to give a kind of update on where things stand. So I guess I'll stay. I'll just give a national game, the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. I'm glad I stayed up for it. It was wildly entertaining. And there's some correlation there with Michigan just because they are a longtime rival, even though they haven't played in a while here. And then you've got, of course, the local CJ Carr and grandson of Lloyd Carr as Notre Dame's starting quarterback, who I thought looked very good. It was Notre Dame's defense that was a struggle there. But yeah, you guys watched that one?
Yeah, I mean, I was flipping between that game and I was actually watched more of the LSU and Florida game. And speaking of 5-star quarterbacks, it's kind of DJ Lagway is kind of proof like you can't just expect a guy to just be awesome without much development because he was absolutely atrocious. I get Death Valley's a tough place to play, but like 5 interceptions and a lot of them, you're just like, what are you doing? Like, I think he cost them the game. Like, I thought Florida's defense played really well to win on the road, and he's out there just chucking it to to LSU on just bad reads and bad decisions. So that's why, like, when people are saying, yeah, like Bryce Underwood's like a sure thing, it's just going to take time and development there too with some of these talented young quarterbacks.
Two thoughts on what we were just talking about. One, I was surprised to see Notre Dame's defense give up 41 points. That just seems unlike them. Maybe Texas A&M is a real deal. I'm cautious to declare anything at this point so early in the year, but it was a fun game. It was one that it was a primetime game that you wanted to tune into and check in every play. On Florida, that's another coach, Billy Napier, I think, is on the hot seat. They're struggling right now. It wouldn't surprise me by the end of the year if you hear his name. His name fired as well in Gainesville.
I mean, you see who Notre Dame's defensive coordinator is this year. Yes. I mean, Chris Ash, as far as people I've covered, and obviously indirectly, but he's, Michigan played them regularly during his, brief stint as their head coach. I think it was 4 years he was there. I mean, it's just one of the seemed like just worst overall head coaches I've seen at this level. And yeah, that doesn't mean that he couldn't be a good position coach, a good coordinator, but obviously not going well. Through 2 games with at Notre Dame, of course. Yeah, the competition, pretty good. It's hard to find a team that's played two tougher games so far to start the year. But yeah. Still ranked, yes. Notre Dame's still ranked, despite being
Still ranked.
Did you rank them?
Yeah, I'm getting flack. I have them 14 still. I dropped them.
14! Oh my God!
Well, they've got 2 losses by combined 5 points. Again, as you said, competition was strong. So I think I had them 8 last week, dropped them to 14. I mean, lost by a point to Texas A&M team.
Here's the way you look at it. Let's look at the actual results on the field, or who do I actually think is the 14th best team in the country?
Yep.
Like, if they who would I pick them to beat the teams that are ranked behind them? So
Bingo.
You know what? I'll give you some credit for going that route, I guess.
Yeah, and
just as long as you had Texas A&M and Miami ranked ahead of them, that's the best.
I did. Yes.
Because your vote matters, Aaron McMahon. Your vote matters. Yeah, that right. That's the thing. You need some consistency there. And I would think that if Notre Dame is like 0-8, Aaron wouldn't continue to die on that hill and just say, hey, I think they're good. Eventually you have to let the results speak for themselves. But this early in the year, I think there should be more variance among the voters. If I gave up my basketball vote, I did it for a couple of years, kind of served my time. If I'm asked to do it again, it's just it's time consuming, especially for basketball at the Sunday night turnaround. Anyway, I think I would, and I think I would be more. I would just be more different than some of these other voters. I think I would, not try to just follow the crowd, and yeah, especially early in the season, you should have a different ballot than other people. But 14 is something. But that's how they stay ranked. But we'll have plenty of coverage of Biff Poggi's first pregame press conference at Michigan tomorrow, as well as coverage throughout the week leading up to Michigan's Big Ten opener against Nebraska on MLive.com/Wolverines. Thanks for listening.